Before sunrise, Burn Dairy and Deli is preparing to fuel your day with hot coffee, donuts, muffins, breakfast sandwiches, and other morning staples. For lunch, grab a giant deli sandwich made the way you like it, pizza, wings, wraps, or a fresh salad, plus something to wash it down. Then pick up dinner or a sweet treat and other pantry essentials. Now you can get your Burn Dairy and Deli favorites delivered with DoorDash. All day, every day, you can count on Burn Dairy and Deli. It's all good.
Hey, this is Linda Cohn from ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
Another edition of The Platter brought to you by Stanley Law Offices, Brian Conboy of Mass Mutual, New York State, and Sit Means Sit Syracuse. Apparently, I need to tell Cooper to sit right now. Go ahead and visit sitmeansit.com. Sitmeansit.com, unbelievable training for your dog. Any breed, any behavior, any dog at Sit Means Sit Syracuse. Go ahead and get a free consultation today. Visit the website at sitmeansit.com. Tip of the cap, thank you as well to Welch & Company Jewelers and our good friends over at the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, as well as the Swan and Whitaker families for their support of the platform as well. I wanted to dive deep into the World Series, kind of put a bow on it, recap it, and kind of my overall synopsis from the season and into next season, as obviously the CBA is on the table between the players and the owners. I'm going to first say that this is the least amount of baseball I have ever watched in the postseason in my entire life. It doesn't make me happy. It's just the way it is. You know, the sport cannot get out of its own way. The analytics are incredibly dominant. And I've heard from a lot of people, well, you're not watching because the Yankees aren't it. I'm not that kind of fan, man. I'm not that kind of fan. I'm glued to the NCAA tournament when the Bonnies lose. When Syracuse loses, I'm still watching all the games. Plus, I work in the business. Hello. I work in sports media. There's kind of, for certain things and certain elements and big events and things that you cover, there's a certain gots to watch it because you have to talk about it, right? Gots to watch because you gots to talk. And Major League Baseball, you know, it's a sport. I mean, look, I run pinstripepassion.com. I talk baseball quite a bit during the regular season. But from a human interest standpoint, to me, the game of baseball is still very enjoyable in certain parts. It's still a beautiful sport when it's on at its best. But I'm not into, aces pitching 3 innings. I'm not into 14, 15 pitching changes in a game. In Game 6, the Braves only used 3 pitchers. That was the most beautiful thing about the game, in my opinion, right? Like, all these pitching changes, the length of the games, all the analytics, all the BS that's going into it, managers not being able to manage on the whole now. I think Snedeker and Dusty Baker were managing big time in the World Series, and I think in other cases this postseason, there were others like Alex Cora. It depends on the franchise. The franchise, in the front office will give the book to the manager, and they'll constantly talk about the analytics, and then they'll let them manage with what the numbers are that they have in their hand. They're given the data, they manage with the data. They don't get controlled all the way by the front office and the general manager, but that's how it is in New York with the Yankees. That's how it is with many other teams around Major League Baseball. I also didn't watch the final out of the World Series. That's something I always do, because I just love that Little League feel of watching the winner, unless it's the Red Sox, run out to the field. And I think this is only like the second or third time in my life I haven't seen the last out of the World Series. The other couple of times I couldn't handle it with Boston winning. But this was the only, the only other time. I'm down on the sport. I'm sick of the owners and the players, battling one another. The commissioner, Rob Manfred, has added too many gadgets and gimmicks to the game. The pitching rules, the runner on second to start in extra innings in the regular season, all these idiotic things that have been implemented. The umpiring has never been worse. I mean, I can go on and on and on here. That's created me to just kind of step away a lot more than I ever could have imagined. Because if you know me and you've known me for a long time, you know how much I love baseball. I've worked in minor league baseball. I've covered the game for a long time. I've been in clubhouses. I cover the Hall of Fame induction every year in Cooperstown. I get a ton of baseball guests on this show, and I've gotten a ton on, previous radio shows in Central New York, SB Nation, Yahoo, Albany, for my short time there. I mean, I've had a lot of great times covering baseball and interviewing people inside the game. But the game is really lost right now. It's lost itself. Having said that, let's break down this World Series. 1-6 games by the Atlanta Braves in one of the great, really, truly great stories. I mean, we're talking about a team that was only, 15 games over 500, and a team that for a good stretch of time wasn't a game over 500, right? I think it was 3 months they weren't even over 500, and they end up as World Series champs. And it starts with them missing so many guys, right? Ozuna away because of the domestic situation. Ronald Acuna tears his ACL. He's out for the year. Soroka, just a great pitcher. He's out for the year. And Alex Anthopoulos, wouldn't take no for an answer in terms of building this franchise back up. We're still going to go for this. We are. We're still going for it. And he did just an unbelievable job of remaking this team with certain pickups, certain acquisitions. I mean, when you think about the unbelievable play, right? Rosario, Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall, picking up all of these guys. and before that, making moves to get guys like Travis d'Arnaud. Just players who fit into what the Braves do. And then they had just enough starting pitching with Max Fried, with Ian Anderson, a ton of their bullpen guys, Will Smith and company. I mean, Will Smith, this year, he was unreal. I mean, he had a 1.13 whip. He was a 3.44 ERA guy. He had 37 saves. I mean, and he's been really good for a long time. We know what he did, with the Giants, and, at times with, as kind of like a long man and all the rest with KC. The record didn't look good for KC or Milwaukee. High ERA at times. Other times, though, he was a long man who ate a lot of innings. He was on, some 4 different teams now here. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Royals, Brewers, Giants, and Braves. This guy for the Giants, he was really, really good in 2019. He had 34 saves. ERA below 3 in 2016 and 18 and 19. So he was a huge part of the Braves bullpen. Big time stuff coming out of his power arm there. And the Braves, they just had a lot of arms across the board, man. Madsick and Minter and Smith and all these guys. Luke Jackson, all these guys, man. And, Ian Anderson, Max Fried, Kyle Wright, they had just enough starting pitching. And then they just let the bullpen roll in a bullpen game. And, there's one other guy who was picked up who was out of control great, absolutely phenomenal. And I left him out for a reason because I wanted to spend a couple of minutes just on him, and that is Jorge Soler. This guy, and I remember reading an article on CBS Sports, I forget the writer's name, but he had predicted that Soler would, be a problem in the World Series and set some records. He came pretty close to doing everything that he said he was going to do, and he was just a terror in this game, in this series, pardon me. He was one of those guys, where, like, it eventually becomes, it gets to the point where you're like, okay, he's going to do something. Like he gets up. If you're not going to intentional walk him, he's going to do so. He's hit one to the moon. He's going to hit one off a wall for a double. He's going to knock in two in the gap. It doesn't. He's going to do something. And in Game 6, he set the tone. I mean, he set the tone with that 3-run home run, and the Braves did not look back from there. Swanson homered to left. Freeman doubled. Freeman homered. We'll get to him in a second. But just an unbelievable, unbelievable series for, Jorge Soler. And, I look at this guy and the career path. It's one of those things, right? I mean, he's been in the big league since 1992. He defected over from Cuba. He paid his dues. He's played on some horrible, horrible baseball teams. He bought time in Kansas City, right, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. He played for the Cubs before that. Obviously, was on that 2016 team. Prior to that, though, obviously was on some brutal teams. In 14, even for the Cubs, I mean, he only played 24 games. Even if the Cubs were decent, he wasn't getting maybe a ton of playing time. He finally arrives, gets some time in 2015. And then you fast forward all the way through the Kansas City years, and you fast forward through up until 2021, and here we are, and this guy is, the World Series MVP. And it's remarkable. It's amazing. These baseball nomads, they hang around long enough. Something happens. You know that there's something in them. I mean, this is only a 223 career hitter, right? We don't see this much. I mean, in baseball, remember Rosarina last year for the Rays kind of arrived. I understand during the regular season in the NFL, like look at what the Saints did, right? They had a cast of no-names, lost their quarterback, and they beat the Bucks and Tom Brady. We see that during the regular season in the NFL. Any given Sunday, a backup quarterback goes out and wins. Look at Mike White with the Jets. That happens in the NFL all the time. Week to week, it happens. Upsets happen. Jets beat the Titans this year. Jets beat the Bengals this year. Upsets happen. Great quarterbacks get knocked around a little bit. You can win a Super Bowl, go back to the Super Bowl, lose, come back the next year as the derivative favorites again in your conference and be 500 halfway through the season, see Kansas City Chiefs, right? Around 500, right? I mean, that's kind of where the NFL is on a weekly. But what I'm getting at is that when the stage is big and it's set with the big lights on, okay? The NFL, usually it's the really good teams from the regular season. And the deeper you go, the best players win the awards, right? The best players make the most happen. There are unsung heroes. There are unsung plays. Deion Branch, I believe, won a Super Bowl MVP, right? When Tom Brady was on the roster, right? So that's an example. There are many other examples that take place in the NFL. I mean, I could go on and on and on about, all the MVPs, in the history of the NFL in terms of like no-name guys winning, Super Bowl MVP. We can go way back to a guy like, Dexter Jackson for the Buccaneers, right? We can go back to on a team that was so loaded with Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball. Larry Brown gets 2 interceptions in Super Bowl 30 and wins it. But for the most part, look at the names of Super Bowl MVPs. Look at the names, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. Bart Starr, Joe Namath, Len Dawson, Staubach, Lynn Swann, Bolitnikoff, Bradshaw, Plunkett, Riggins, Marcus Allen, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Terrell Davis, John Elway, Ray Lewis, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Santonio Holmes, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look at these guys. Look at the names. Doug Williams, even. I mean, look, at that point, he was one of the top couple quarterbacks through the entire year. Jerry Rice, right? Patrick Mahomes, even Julian Edelman was the favorite target of Tom Brady a few years ago, won the Super Bowl MVP, right? Von Miller, one of the best defensive players we've seen in the last 15, 20 years. I mean, from this recent era of the NFL, you're probably going to talk about Von Miller and Aaron Donald as being the two, now they're teammates, the two dominant guys in the NFL, right? He won a Super Bowl MVP. Malcolm Smith won one. That was kind of whoa. But Joe Flacco won one. Now you look at it and say, well, Joe Flacco is a no-name in the history of the game, but for that short a time, 2-3 years, he was one of the best elite quarterbacks and one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL, who I thought, had some major staying power, right? Emmitt Smith, Otis Anderson, Phil Simms, right? I mean, look at these guys. Look at the names who win Super Bowl MVPs. And you can look at that, and a lot of it is similar in Major League Baseball, but it's more prone to be Jorge Soler. You're more likely in baseball to get a guy like Jorge Soler who has, bought his time, multiple franchises, baseball nomad, finally arriving on the stage, and all of a sudden, boom, how are you today? You can't get me out. You can't get me out. And the Astros had no answers for him. They really had no answers for him. Neither did the Dodgers. Brewers did a pretty good job on him. He hit under 100, obviously, in that series. Really struggled, but, he came back and was really, really good against the Dodgers when he needed to be. Again, in the World Series, he was he got the benefit of the DH. He took full advantage of it, and he went nuts. I mean, he had 20 at-bats and, 6 hits, 6 RBI, 3 home runs, 3 walks, hit 300. His OPS was 1,100 plus. I mean, great World Series. It's a 223 lifetime hitter. You don't see an NFL no-name / backup quarterback, whatever, go and win the Super Bowl MVP. It just doesn't happen that often. You might have an unsung hero here and there and all the rest, but usually it's Hall of Famer, a quarterback in a lot of instances, or during an era, a certain position player like a Riggins or an Allen or an Emmitt Smith. Those guys are all in Canton, right? Jorge Soler is not going to Cooperstown. So it's more prone in baseball to have this happen. He had a great series. I think when you look at the rest of this series, it was kind of like how the entire postseason went for Atlanta, and frankly, the regular season when they were hot, right? Because when they were hot, it was, they play in the NL East, right? I mean, are the Braves really going to arrive, right? Can we really believe in these guys? Almost kind of the same feeling as one of their teams in the same city, in the Atlanta Falcons, right? Like, oh, what are these guys going to do? And then they finally arrive up 28-3 in the Super Bowl. They choke that away, and now they're a broken franchise, just totally broken. New regime, new head coach, new GM, can't get out of their own way. Injuries like crazy. Calvin Ridley now steps away with mental health. I mean, it's one thing after another. The dominoes have fallen in Atlanta for the Falcons, but the Braves, I remember people talking all year like, oh, the division's so bad. But that doesn't mean that you can't get a World Series winner out of it, because once you win the division and you're in, you hit the reset button. Everything changes. We've seen this before. We've seen teams come from an inferior league or an inferior conference and win a championship, especially, on a stage where it's, okay, a one-game deal, or it's this series. It's 1 game or 6 or 7 games. It's not 162 games. It's not the course of a season. It's the here and now, and you play a few games, and then you figure out, who's going to win, who's going to lose. And I think in this particular spot, I think this is outstanding stuff by the Atlanta Braves, because they fought a lot of that resiliency. I mean, they really, really did. Think about it. Dodgers, go back to the Dodgers series. And by the way, this team beat Milwaukee to start things off. They lost game 1. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go back to Milwaukee. Because against Milwaukee, and then I'll get to Freddie Freeman and a couple other little things, and I'll close up. But the Milwaukee series, I mean, they lost game 1 2-1. And then they came back and won 3 in a row. And that was classic Braves resiliency from 2021. Hey, we lost Acuna Jr., we lost Soroka, we lost Ozuna, no problem. Rosario, Peterson, Duvall, Soler, right? We'll plug and play. We got Ian Anderson, who, by the way, is a Shenendehowa grad out of the Capital Region and also played for the Valley Cats, Tri-City, from the Joe to the show, as they say. Pretty great stuff. Loved going to that stadium, Joe Bruno, when I was in Albany, up there in Troy. But pretty cool stuff there. A Capital Region guy, winning a World Series and being, I know Fried pitched Game 6 and was fantastic, but I think Ian Anderson's the ace of the Braves. Just unbelievable resiliency. They lost a 2-1 game. That was a tough first game to lose to the Milwaukee Brewers, especially, when you started out and Charlie Morton gave you everything you needed. By the way, there's another injury, Charlie Morton, right? He went 6 innings and had 9 strikeouts. They ended up losing him through the postseason. They got everything they wanted out of a starting pitcher and lost. They come back and win 3 in a row. The Braves played the Dodgers. They won the first 2 games. Everybody said, okay, we're going to Los Angeles. Game 3 is obviously going to be it. The Braves kind of let the Dodgers back in a little bit in that game. Bang, 6-5, the Dodgers win. But then the Braves come right back and win, and it's 3-1. Then they lose game 5, and everybody said, hey, is it happening again? Is it happening again? Remember the Dodgers came back 3-1 before, blah, blah, down 1-3, is it going to happen again? And then the Braves just come right out in Game 6, and they slam the door on the LA Dodgers. The Braves bullpen was absolutely positively lights out for the most part. Ian Anderson only gave him 4 innings. It was Minter, Jackson, Matzik, and Smith dominating, like so many other games in the postseason. They only gave up 1 earned run in 5, and they win 4-2, and they got crazy, unbelievable production from, Rosario. And just this team effort, this collective effort. The Braves picked each other up every single night. In this particular game, Freddie Freeman had 4 walks, which helped the team, but he didn't have any hits, didn't have any RBI. You could look at some other. Duvall had an off game in this one. Jock Peterson had an off game in this one. Dansby Swanson had an off game in this one. But guess what happened? Travis d'Arnaud had an off game in this one. But guess what happened? Rosario, 2 hits, 3 RBI, with a big home run in the 4th inning. Elbies gets a hit. Riley, 2 hits and an RBI. This is the sign of a championship team. When a lineup misses 3, 4 guys, 5 guys, the other 3, 4 pick you up. It reeks, it screams 90s Yankees to a T. It really does. And so then they win Game 6. And then in the World Series, they win Game 1, lose Game 2. It's tied. So Houston, now, we go to Atlanta. This is a resilient bunch, but Houston's offense is the best. I heard more about Houston's offense in the entire World Series on shows and all the rest than I heard anything about the Braves being able to shut them down, right? There was a lot of talk about Atlanta, obviously, but, in their bullpen and who would start and this and that. And Snitker's story is great, by the way, because he's been with the franchise for, 45 years, back to, I think, age 22, player, scout, now the manager, etc. And he's just perfect for the team. He's very low key. He's like the cool uncle. In some cases, the cool grandpa. And just handles things right. Alex Anthopoulos gives him the power to manage. And just a really cool story. The Atlanta Braves offense should have been talked about as much, if not more, than the Houston Astros. They put together 7 runs in Game 6. They were fantastic. Houston looked like they were exhausted in this series, by the way, to Atlanta. Like Game 4, I think right in that wheelhouse of Game 3 and Game 4, the 2-0 and 3-2 games. You kind of right at that moment after Game 4, you kind of said to yourself, okay, like Houston just doesn't have it, right? Houston, they're exhausted. They took a 2-0 lead in that game, but they couldn't hang on. And it was the Braves train just kept chugging. Riley singles to left and an RBI there. Then Swanson homered and then Soler homered. In this home run era, with analytics, launch angle, and all the rest that we're in, you do have to hit home runs to win games. I don't think you should lean on them. Atlanta certainly didn't, but they hit their share of home runs. And Smith closed it out. He was unbelievable. Again, Matzik got the win. In Atlanta, they're World Series champions. Where do they go from here? Well, they go to a place in the NL East where they're the absolute undaunted favorites going into 2022, assuming we have baseball. More on that in a minute. They've got just an outstanding roster as it is now. They'll have to make some changes, like everybody else in the offseason who becomes free agent. Who do you bring back? Are you going to target the market at all? Probably want to beef up the starting pitching just a little bit. But you get one of the top 5 players in the game back in Acuna with the knee injury. You wonder if certain things settle in certain areas, what the outfield looks like, etc. But they have a major core that they are going to have for a long, long time. I mean, you can continue to build through these big guys, Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley. By the way, those guys really, really came to form this year. Remember, they were playing around not too long ago with the minor leagues with these guys. Austin Riley, third base, Dansby Swanson, shortstop. Now it looks all of a sudden like you've got the left side of your infield set for a very, 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 very long time, right? A very long time. Freddie Freeman, how many more years does he play? Is he going to be a guy who the Braves bring back? They should. I would sign him to like a 4 or 5 year deal, so then you can keep him and Albies and Swanson and Riley together. You've got depth at shortstop as well with Camargo. He can at third with Camargo, but he can slide over and play short if he has to. You've got really a great infield for the long haul. The outfield should be fine as well. The pitching and the bullpen is there. The manager is there. The front office is there. It's hard to repeat. It's hard to get back. But they're the prohibitive favorites in the NL East. There's no doubt about that. They're far better than the Marlins. They're far better than the Mets. The Phillies are a disaster. Every team in the NL East has something going on. The Nationals basically are heading into a rebuild maybe after a couple of years after winning the World Series. They're a disaster. They need a lot of help. They got to have some minor leaguers come up and really perform and make way. The Mets are a clown show in the front office. You can't believe in them. The Marlins, Marlins are irrelevant. And the Phillies have spent a ton of money and nothing's worked out. So you've got to have, although Bryce Harper had a great end of the year, they have nothing to show for it in the end. I mean, they've spent $500, $600, $700 million over there, and they have nothing to show for it. This team, the Atlanta Braves, should be back, and they should win the NL East. Freddie Freeman, I'm super happy for. I think Freddie Freeman is building a Hall of Fame career. I was almost hoping that Freddie Freeman was going to win the World Series MVP because I wanted that to be in a spot to help solidify his career, because he's already got an MVP as an Atlanta Brave. He already has. He's 5-time All-Star, Gold Glove. He's a World Series champ. He's an MVP guy. He's a 2-time Silver Slugger. He's a career .295 hitter. His numbers, he strikes out 1,300 plus times, but he's got 271 home runs. He's got 941 RBI. He has over 1,700 hits. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer now, but I think he's building the Hall of Fame career. If he can play another, I don't know, and he's 32 years old too. You wonder if he's going to maybe move leagues. If he moves leagues, he'll obviously buy another year or two as a DH. If he can play another 6 to 8 years, let's say he puts a 20-year career together, right? A Derek Jeter type career. I'd love to see him sign with Atlanta for 6 to 8 more years, or even 5, 6 with options at the end, or whatever the case may be. Put together another 3, 4, 5-ish years until he's 36, 37 with, around 30 home runs a year. He hit 31 this year. He puts together that. You tack on another 150, and then maybe a couple years after that, maybe he gets up to 200 or so more home runs. That's 471 home runs. RBI-wise, he had 121 a couple of years ago. He had 83 this year. I think if he can somehow put together, a few 100 RBI seasons, and then maybe like between 70 and 90 in those other 3, 4, 5, 6 campaigns, you're probably looking at 75 times 4, 300, another 300 off the 100 RBI seasons, maybe 600, and we'll go a little high-end, 650-ish, 660-ish. That puts him at 1,600 RBI. I think when he gets older, his batting average will come back. Maybe he'll end up being a 275, 280 hitter. But I got to tell you, if you look at all those accolades, you look at all those numbers, you look at everything he's done, I think if those are the numbers in the end, World Series champ, MVP, right? Probably go to more All-Star games, all those things. He'll go to Cooperstown. He's building a Hall of Fame resume. He's got 1 Gold Glove, but God, doesn't it feel like he should have 2 or 3? This guy has been a vacuum cleaner at first base. I'm super happy for him. What's next for the Astros? I think what's next for the Astros is, their front office has a major challenge. I mean, there's no other way to say it, because this core is going to start to get broken up a little bit. I can't see Carlos Correa staying. I just can't. He's going to want enormous amounts of money. He'll probably be the lead dog in the shortstop market. There's a lot of guys out there who are becoming free agents. Corey Seager to name one, Trevor Story to name another. Carlos Correa is the absolute gem of the class. And he's going to want huge money. He's going to want the most money of all. Seattle, Texas, these teams are going to be looking to spend and spend big. Watch out for these clubs. They're going to be getting after it. Would the Boston Red Sox entertain, getting back and breaking the bank a little bit? I don't know. So Correa, an interesting situation here. Did the Giants go out and try to get younger and better after they just had a great year? Do you go out and try to get your new franchise cornerstone? Do the Giants go out and spend money? I've heard rumors that maybe that's the case as well. But Carlos Correa, it's gonna be a lot of money. It's gonna be a lot of money. And this group, you're gonna have to start to kind of, Altuve, Bregman, who's that third guy? Who's that fourth guy? Is Yordan Alvarez there to stay? Gurriel is 37. I mean, there's a lot of guys here. Maldonado, 35. I mean, they have some guys who are aging. The pitching staff took a major hit this year. Is Verlander going to be back for a full healthy year? Does he want 1 more year to try and chase another ring before he retires? Maybe 2 more years. McCullers had injury problems this year. I think he got something with Jose Urquidy. He's fantastic. And I think he got something with Luis Garcia. Garcia's 24, Urquidy's 26. I think you can build around those guys. Framber Valdez as well is 27. You have 3 guys there you can build around. I think the Astros pitching, especially with the way they coach and manage and the analytic part that they mix in with the old school, new school, I think they're going to be okay from a pitching standpoint. I think it's a matter of what you want to do building around a couple of players offensively. So I'm loving the fact that the Braves won this World Series. And you know what? I've been asked by a few people if the Braves, if the Astros, had won, would you have forgotten about the cheating scandal? No, of course not. That stays with them forever. You can't go back in time on that one. That stays with Houston forever. Congratulations to the Atlanta Braves winning the 2021 World Series. Unbelievable run for that ball club and GM Alex Anthopoulos and Snicker and all the rest on down the line. ML Sports Platter brought to you by Barks and Rec Doggy Daycare, Welch & Company Jewelers, Axe Exotic Pets, and CNY Electrical. Log on to cnyelectrical.com. cnyelectrical.com. Commercial and residential needs in and around the great state of New York and Central New York. 315-297-1514. That's 315-297-1514. I also want to remind people to go ahead and visit bscbobcats.com for an updated schedule for the Bryant and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse. Bryant and Stratton College of Syracuse is the official college of the ML Sports Platter, with baseball starting this spring, an inaugural season. How exciting is that?